I think I've talked with a lot of you about what my talk is going to be, and
Rockets hit again.
you know, it is
Give me a second.
case against human exploration of Mars until robotics and propulsion systems improve. Now, I know that's counterintuitive.
Sounds like you already saw that.
Yeah.
Here we are on Mars site conference, and everybody's all excited about. We've got to explore Mars, and we're going to terraform it, and we're going to colonize it, and then we're going to create a political system for it, and we are going to have this great new utopian society. Okay? Show me. The reality of life is, in order to leave the lower Earth orbit, you have to go at 17,500 miles an hour in a controlled explosion, and after you leave the gravity well, and you are in orbit, you've used up 90% of your fuel, then you're going to coast 35 million miles to another world, and you know, this isn't Hawaii. There's no oxygen. There's water that's frozen in holes, and there is no food. And to the best of our knowledge, there is no life of any kind. And we're going to go to Wall Street, and we're going to ask Wall Street, you need to invest billions of dollars in this project. And my Wall Street investment friends are going to go, show me the return on investment and how that's going to happen, and show me the timeline and how we get our money back for the money we put in. And all I can say is, sign me up right now. Because one of the things that's required in life if you're going to have success is you have to take risks. There is no question you want to take risks in order to succeed in anything. But risks have to be calculated, and in order to pursue a risky project, you've got to make sure that you lower the risk level as much as possible. And that's what this talk is about. So, yeah, we are all in agreement on the goal. We are all in agreement that we need to explore the inner solar system and that we need to terraform and eventually colonize Mars. There is no question all of us are in agreement about that. But in order to explore Mars and in order to terraform and colonize it, we have to be realistic about what we are pursuing. Because this idea that we are going to have 1 million people live on Mars and we're going to have 100,000 rockets launch and go over there, well, for one thing, you can only go on the launch window once every 26 months. So what are we talking about there? Then 10,000 years to get there? No. That's why we have to improve propulsion systems. We got to make it so that instead of going to Mars in 6 months, that we're able to get there in hopefully 2 weeks, maybe 1 month. We started off 500 years ago when my Spanish ancestors went from Seville, from Barcelona, on tiny little wooden ships that would be scary to get on just to go sightseeing, much less go across the damn ocean. And they came to this side of the planet, and it took, on average, 79 days. The time frame, as technology improved, when I fly to Barcelona next month, it's going to take me 8 hours. But that's 500 years later. Now, 500 years from now, if we can make it that far without blowing ourselves up, or a super virus, or doing the other incredibly stupid things that we're doing, 500 years from now, yeah, there probably will be civilization and colonies on Mars. But to get from this point to 500 years from now, it's going to take a concerted effort, and it's going to take some realism. We need to lower the risk level to get to Mars so that we can actually accomplish this. Because politicians are consistent in two things. They are cowards and they are liars. Every 4 years, you have a change in administration. Sometimes you get an 8-year run, and then you get a complete change in NASA policy. For the last 50 years, NASA has been able to take us going around the Earth and around and around and around, and that's about it. The space program for moon exploration and for going up into the outer solar system, pretty well guided. Now, I put this video on in the background to remind us that most explorations fail. If you look at it historically, Henry Hudson, for whom Hudson Bay is named after, well, his crew mutinied and they killed him, and the bay is named after him. Then there's the lesser known ones. There's Gaspar Rael, Joaquin Rael. They went out into the unknown, and they remained unknown. They failed. You look at Navarez, that went over to Florida with 600 men, and he cut off Chief Attica's nose and poisoned relations with the Native Americans in the Southwest for centuries. 8 of his 600 men died. Of the 8, 2 of them made it back to Culiacan, Mexico, and the writings from one, from Pasadena, led to Coronado's explorations of the Southwest. And you look at the Donner Party, people had to become food because they just didn't quite make it across that desert. Magellan started off with 5 ships and 220 men, and 18 men and 1 ship made it back to Spain 5 years later. Captain Cook, well, he got a little bit too friendly with Hawaiians, and they took him out. Most explorations in history fail. The only ones you know about are the ones where they actually had some success, like Cortez and Pizarro. Mass murderers that they were, they did get a lot of gold back to Spain, which of course led to our present world. So if you want to do this, if you really are serious, if we really are serious about exploring and terraforming and colonizing Mars, all I'm saying is let's take the risk level out and let's reduce it and let's do it right. If you send humans up to Mars now in the BFR SpaceX rocket that they have, and that thing fails, of which I think there's probably a 50-50 chance, given the history of rocket failures, that it fails, you can forget about space exploration for decades. I think the better approach is let's use robots, let's fill it up with robots, let's fill it up with supplies, let's use artificial intelligence, let's use construction robots, and let's have the robots go up there, set up the infrastructure first. And really set up the infrastructure, because what we are talking about is the most insanely dangerous human exploration project in history. I mean, for crying out loud, the reason Antarctica only has a couple of explorer science bases up there is it is freezing cold. You know, and we're asking people to go to 35 million miles on a good day, 250 million miles on a bad day, and we're asking them to go to minus 70 degrees and windy and no light of any kind. You know, we're asking them to go on suicide missions that are unrealistic. Let's face it, Mars is a dead rock. It may have had life at one time, but it certainly does not have any kind of viable life of any kind now. So if we're going to terraform and breathe life to Mars, then all I'm saying is let's do it right. We can improve the propulsion systems by having a global effort at the research to improve propulsion systems. What I'm advocating is let's build an international rocket test facility where we test different types of rocket propulsion systems. And it just so happens one of my clients has a rocket test facility on an Indian reservation that could be leased to do exactly that. We can combine these efforts. And the reason we have to combine these efforts at space exploration is if you have one nation do it When the politics change, the policy changes, and there goes your entire exploratory program. You have shared risk if you have the Chinese, the Russians, the Japanese, the Brazilians, Pakistanis, the Americans, and yes, the Iranians, all of us working together. Because by having shared risk, you lower the political cost for those gutless cowards we call politicians. They have no problem in sending young men and women to their deaths and spending $2 trillion on failed adventures that kill 1 million people. But to properly fund a space program, there's no way. These guys look at it, no. My last book is Space and Ocean Exploration, the Alternative to the Military-Industrial Complex. And what I propose in that book is give the aerospace contractors exploration of the inner solar system and give the Navy contractors protection of the wildlife in the oceans. In order to make Mars viable, you redirect defense spending for space exploration. That way, the thieves we call the military-industrial complex, who have Congress wired right down to the last vote, and they're going to get the money anyway, then they get the money for a new mission. It has to be done, because if we do not properly explore the heavens, and if we don't get the public to understand just how precious life is on this planet, and how rare it is, because all of you know, you guys are the choir, all of you know that in the inner solar system, there's not anything even so complex as a mosquito on Titan or on Europa or on these other worlds. Life on Earth is extremely precious and very, very valuable, and it has to be preserved. Half of the wildlife in the oceans is gone, 90% of the predator fish are gone, and the Asians are killing 200,000 sharks each day for shark fin soup. This has to stop. And the only way it can stop is if people realize that this planet is a tiny planet in a group of planets. Yes, I am 100% in favor of exploring, terraforming, and colonizing Mars, but I don't want it to fail. And if it fails, which it will, because the more complex the system, the greater the probability something will go wrong, then what will happen is you will get some jackass like Trump that will cancel the entire program. You know, you're going to get another president that will come along, well, we don't need to spend money on that. We're not spending real money on space exploration. Let's be clear about that. We spend 3 times more money on dog food than the entire space program. But, you know, we like our dogs. You know, we may not like politicians, but we like our dogs. We spend more money on cosmetics than we do on space exploration. The only way this can be done is with the shared risk of getting all nations to make it an international effort, and by improving robotics, by improving artificial intelligence, and by improving propulsion systems. I want it to succeed. That's why I am against the current program of let's push people to Mars as fast as possible. You have to take your time and do things right when you're going to engage in a complete policy change and in something so important as space exploration. Because I'll tell you what, the first time one of these ships doesn't make it, you can't exactly call AAA and ask for help because you need roadside service. You know, you can't call the Coast Guard and ask them for help because your ship's stranded. We're asking for people to go to a place where there's no oxygen, no food, and the water may or may not work. Oh, and the gravity's not quite what it is here on Earth. So I think that we can do it, but we have to do it with robots first. Robots do not go on strike. Robots do not talk back. They do not need an insurance policy. They can work 24 hours a day. They don't need time off to watch their kids. And it doesn't matter whether they speak Spanish or English. You know, you're not going to be concerned about deporting them. And yes, robots are going to take your jobs. Any questions? And that's my lecture.
Question about do you think that sending people to Mars, like right now, I know you're advocating against it, but as a forcing function for getting some of these other things in place, do you think that might help, or do you still think that it would harm overall if one of those missions did go forward?
When one of these missions fails, what's going to happen is it will set back space exploration for decades. That's the only reason I'm against doing it right now. I mean, if you could show me that it's less than a 50-50 chance of failure, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. It's certainly going to be safer than the Apollo mission. I mean, my gosh, when you study what was happening and how we did the Apollo mission, that was extremely high risk. Other questions?
What do you think about Mars Flyby mission?
Well, I think we should do a Mars Flyby mission, and let's put robots on there, and absolutely let's do it. Let's do it with robots and with artificial intelligence. Let's not send people 35 million miles out into outer space and take the risk that they're not going to come back. Let's just be a little bit patient, and let's make sure that when we send people out, that we can have the people come back. Because I'll tell you what will happen if we fail and we don't successfully colonize Mars, then as a species, we will fail. And we're pretty close to failure right now with climate change and all of the other very nasty things we're doing to this planet.
You know, between the two companies right now that are vying, I guess, or competing to go up to the ISS, which is ULA and SpaceX, do you know much about that? Which one would you trust? Or
I think you trust both of them. You know, I think you got to get as many people trying as possible. But what I'm saying is, before you leave lower Earth orbit, before you leave the Earth, I mean, sending people to the moon, which is 250,000 miles away, that's fine. But that's a far cry from sending them out 35 million miles to a cold desert that doesn't have any oxygen or water or food. I mean, if they were going to Hawaii, we're going to see, you know, nice girls with grass skirts on, and there's going to be all kinds of plants, and they're going to have water and waterfalls. Yeah, that's great, but that's not what we're doing. This is unrealistic. We got to have a sense of realism when we take on a project. I mean, I've been a member of the Mars Society for 20 years, and I've been studying about space exploration since I was 10 years old. But I just don't think it's a reasonable idea to send people to their deaths when you know there's a 50-50 chance that they're going to die, even if they want to. Because I'll tell you, the one thing politicians love more than anything else is they love the headlines. And you know, you also have to look at the mass media. If it bleeds, it leads. They love controversy, they love explosions, and they love death and dismemberment. And this would be a great excuse to just completely do away with space exploration. Space exploration is too important to have it fail.
I would just say that you're not really considering how many decades would actually take to have the robots and the materials. So if we rely solely on the development of autonomous robots that can achieve one mission, then we're going to have experience.
I'm sorry, speak up.
To develop robots that advance will be decades. So I think that we would actually be better at having a current strategy where we recruit more engineers, for example, to work with robots, still send humans, but at the same time, basically eliminating the other technology that creates need. And even if you look at the our plans, the first ones are supposed to be partnerships. It's supposed to be something that we actually develop so that it's not going to be possible to actually develop satellites with the technology that we have, with the technology that we have years, because robots are basically the hardest thing we can make. They don't work.
Well, robots, yeah, are very, very primitive, but if we put research and development dollars into this as a global society, I think we're going to make huge advancements.
There is a lot of money going into it, but just exceptionally hard in terms of combined intelligence, all the money that's brought into AI technology, physics propulsion, and current.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of money going into AI, and AI is going to continue to improve and improve and improve. But I'll tell you what, if we fail, and I'm not risk adverse at all, but if we fail in our attempts to go to Mars because we don't do it right, because we don't calculate something right, the setback would be enormous. enormous. I think we should do a flyby mission for Mars, and I think we should use a lot of robots and a lot of cameras and the best technical equipment we have. I think the best thing we can do is improve propulsion systems. More than robots, we really have got to work on improving propulsion systems. We had the NERVA program in the 60s, and we completely did away with that. I think we need to master the power of the atom for space travel. I think that by using atomic power so that we can really use that energy source to lower the timeline, I think at that point it's going to be much more viable.
How fast can you use travel in spaceship or shuttle or rocket? Is there some limitation on our physical parameters?
I think getting out of Earth orbit there is, but once you're in outer space, I think you can go at a much faster rate because I think their G-forces are going to be different. That's a good technical question that I'll have to research.
Oh, well, if we have advanced humanoid type of robots that can do the work on Mars, why do we need an advanced propulsion system? We can get there using robots with the chemical rockets.
Well, the chemical rockets is all we have right now, and like it or not, that's what we're going to have for the near future. And that's a good question, but I think we just need to do both. Let's go with improved robotics and much improved propulsion systems. You had a question, sir?
I did not, but I'm happy to make a statement.
Please.
It turns out that advanced propulsion doesn't really buy you that much until you get to antimatter. You won't get 2-week transit times to Mars, survivable human physiology, until you get to that point. So nuclear thermal, nuclear electric, nuclear thermal, high mass, fusion, antimatter, in that order. But the first 4 don't get you there on the timeline that you need.
Well,
Because the limiting factor is, how long can you sustain acceleration on your body? You pull 3 Gs on an amusement park ride.
Well, 1-2 pounds of acceleration, you're going to have two differences.
Well, not quite.
yeah, there's limitations in terms of how fast humans can go anyway. I think your point is absolutely spot on.
Just want to set the table, honestly. And the other question that I would raise has to do with the specific type of robot that was useful on the surface of Mars is not necessarily the one that's going to be developed by a corporation that wants to build cars and computers and whatever else. So we can't assume that the spin-offs will automatically be useful. So where is the economic incentive to build a space robot?
I think that the only way that, or one of the ways that space exploration is going to become viable is through tourism. You got to monetize it, and if you can get space tourism so that you can pour more money into there, and that becomes economically viable, I think you're going to attract a lot of money. Because the one thing that my friends on Wall Street are always big about is return on investment. I mean, you can invest $250 million on a new drug to get it through phase 3 testing through the FDA, and but the return can be several $billion. And the same will happen with space exploration. As companies put money into improvements on getting people into orbit so that they can have just the incredible experience of seeing the Earth from space, and that becomes more viable through more launches and more vehicles going up there, then you're going to see a lot more money go into that area. I mean, if people can take a holiday and go to the moon, I think you're going to see a lot more companies develop in that area. The only reason I don't think it's viable to go to Mars right now with humans is the risk, I think, is just way too high. And the risk isn't the risk of failure, it's the political risk. Because in life, you're going to have failure. When my Spanish ancestors lost 500 men when Columbus told them, do not go out and sail, And he told them that a hurricane was coming, and 29 of the 30 ships that he told to not go out there were destroyed, and 500 people died. Spanish exploration of the world continued. When Narvaez and 600 of his men died, Spanish exploration of this part of the planet continued. But that was a different era. Those people had something that is clearly lacking in public life today. They had courage. Because today people don't have courage. What they have is news media, and they have lies. And sometimes the more they can lie, the better. And you can't do that because in the science world, it either works or it doesn't work. We can test these. And science is real. You know, religion, mythology, politics, that's just smoke and mirrors. And I want us to go with what's real, and I think that the way to do it is let's really develop the robotics and the propulsion systems, but let's definitely do it. You know, let's not be afraid that because we're going to lose astronauts to stop. It's just we got to make sure that politicians don't kill this effort because they can. And the amount of money it's going to take to get onto Mars, it's going to have to come from the public sector. Even as rich as Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and others are, they don't have the kind of resources to really and truly explore and colonize Mars. You know, SpaceX survived because the Obama administration bailed them out through NASA. And the reality of life is, let's go with the public sector, but let's do it as a shared risk, as a human society. Let's get all nations involved. Let's get all nations on board. Because if you get more nations involved, you lower the political risk.
So with the space tourism that you're mentioning, are you advocating going to the moon and setting up colonization there first?
I'm advocating both. I think we really need to pursue it as a grand effort because by pursuing space exploration as the alternative to the military-industrial complex, you will create new industries, entire new industries. You'll create millions of jobs, and you'll give young people the thing young people need the most. You'll give young people hope. Oh, all of you have to put your hands out just like this in just a second. Here, $21 trillion national debt, that's yours. Collapse of the fisheries, that's yours. The aquifers being depleted, that's yours. Super viruses, that's yours. Overpopulation, that's yours. A dysfunctional foreign policy in the Middle East, that's yours. $210 trillion in unfunded pensions, that's yours. Now I want all of you to say, Danny, I'd like to thank your generation for not blowing up the world. Come on, give me some love. Oh, you're so